Superman Legacy is the first movie in the DCU, and it has a lot of pressure on it. But does the DCU's future rely on the success of Superman Legacy? Hey everyone, welcome back to our movie news. Today's video is almost a second part to yesterday's video that discussed whether or not we needed a morally perfect Superman for the DCU, or if he should learn to become Superman over multiple movies. Within the comments, many of you have little faith in the rebooted Superman story, which has led me to create today's video. Does the DCU's future rely on Superman Legacy? It's an interesting question, one that I believe doesn't have a factual answer, but is an intriguing debate to have. So today, that is the debate we shall be having. I believe this entire question purely boils down to one thing: the studio. Not DC Studios, but Warner Bros. Discovery. It depends on how reactionary the studio is. We have seen Warner Bros. React to negative feedback in the past and try to course correct the entire story for the DCEU. And that was with movies that made profits on every film they had released up until that point. Now yes, this is a new company. Warner Bros. Discovery has different leadership to Warner Bros., but that reactivity is still there. For Black Adam, The Flash, and Aquaman 2, Discovery made changes to those movies to try and put the DCEU back on track. They put Abdi and DeLuca in charge of DC to try and fix the DCEU. They planned on having the whole Justice League return and were going to create a Man of Steel 2 and a Justice League 2 with the original cast. However, when Black Adam came out and it didn't reach their expectations, they brought in James Gunn and Peter Safran to reboot it all. They gave it one film to see how audiences would react to their changes, which, bearing in mind at that stage, was just a 30-second cameo of Henry Cavill's Superman. They expected that to massively boost the box office of the film when the post-credit scene had leaked a week before the film came out, which meant their big attempt of pulling in DC fans who'd given up on the DCEU was all over social media before the film was even released, so not as many people felt the need to watch that movie. And it still made $393 million without a Chinese release, which could have boosted that film an extra $100 to $200 million based on The Rock's popularity in China. So they gave it one movie to see if people would turn up to the DCEU before giving the keys over to Gunn. So who's going to say they wouldn't do the same to Gunn if Superman Legacy flops? The last 8 DCEU movies have all flopped at the box office. Audiences just haven't turned up for them, so the possibility of Superman Legacy flopping is quite high too. And with a reactionary studio owning them, could we see David Zaslav putting the DCU on pause or potentially cancelling the entire plan? Well, I think it depends on how badly it flops, because it could do well critically and audiences may love it, but if it doesn't make a profit, then at least they could see that audiences who saw it did actually enjoy it. Then it's just a learning curve to see how to expand that audience. We don't quite know how reactive the studio is going to be with the DCU though, as Gunn may have reassured them to give him time even if the box office isn't there right away. Although if it is financially and critically rejected, then I think the DCU could be in big trouble. Because not only would that mean that the few that actually watched the movie didn't like it, but it also means the guy you put in charge of the entire DC franchise just made a Superman movie that no one liked, and it lost you hundreds of millions of dollars. Zaslav is obsessed with cutting costs and making profit. He doesn't understand the storytelling experience. He just looks at numbers and wants them to go up. If he sees a lot of negativity surrounding Superman Legacy, financially and critically, he could pull the plug. They would also have millions of fans all angry at Gunn for saying no to Henry Cavill's Superman, who had just been brought back. He could have continued with Cavill's Superman, but he said no. He wanted to do his own thing with a new actor. Which is fine if the movie is good, But if audiences don't like Superman Legacy, then I think a lot of the audience will reject not only his version of Superman, but the DCU in general, and would question his judgment and leadership at DC Studios, and I think Zaslav would too. If I don't like Superman Legacy and I think it is far away from a good film, then I will be angry at Gunn for getting rid of a perfectly good Superman and a course-corrected DCEU, and I would be angry at Zaslav for hiring him in the first place, and I think a lot of other DC fans would too. I was angry at Gunn getting rid of Cavill when the news came out, and I am still a little upset by it. But that is without seeing what he can do with his own Superman story. So my anger was without specific evidence of what Cavill was being replaced with, so there was no real grounds to base that anger on other than I really liked Cavill's Superman. But if Superman Legacy comes out and it is bad, I will be very angry with Gunn, and I think it is fair to say that most of the audience would too. If there is that much rejection to a movie, I don't think there is any chance the DCU expands further than Legacy. If anything, I wouldn't be surprised if they fire Gunn and claim Legacy as a standalone movie and bring back DeLuca and Abdi to help sort out the mess in the meantime. But I really don't see that happening, as in I don't see Superman Legacy flopping that badly. I don't think it will be universally rejected. I could see it flopping at the box office, or at least underachieving at the box office, but I don't think it will be universally rejected. Gunn is a popular director and is famous for his Guardians trilogy, so I think that will help the movie get a bit of interest from the general audience. But Superman Legacy is under a lot of pressure. I would go as far to say that this movie has the most pressure any DC movie has ever had, and that is because it's not just impacting itself. If it fails, the DCU is doomed. It won't get off the ground. It has to be a great movie. Even if it was average, there would still be a lot of question marks surrounding Gunn and the DCU. So what should we expect from Superman Legacy at the box office? Well, I don't think it is possible for modern day audiences to not turn up to a Superman movie. He is one of the biggest superheroes of all time, and that has a large pull factor. Everyone knows who Superman is. In 2013, Man of Steel made $668 million at the box office, so at first glance, Superman Legacy needs to make roughly that amount of money. However, that was in 2013, so the numbers aren't quite accurate for today's economy. So with inflation, if Man of Steel came out today, it would have earned $890 million. It was a rebooted Superman story and was the first movie in the DCEU. And that sounds like the exact same scenario for Superman Legacy, a rebooted Superman story and the first movie in the DCU. However, Man of Steel was released a year after The Dark Knight Rises, the final movie in a hugely successful trilogy that made over $2.5 billion in just 3 movies. So Man of Steel had an engaged fanbase when the movie was released. Superman Legacy, on the other hand, is being released after 8 DCEU flops in a row that was only able to make $1.2 billion combined. So I do think it would be unfair for us to expect Superman Legacy to make $890 million at the box office. I think anywhere from $400 million to $600 million would be pretty good for Superman Legacy in the context of when it is being released. If audiences didn't judge a new movie based on the old DCEU films, then I think Superman Legacy should be making $800 million plus. But due to the lack of success the DCEU has had in recent years, I think $400 million plus should be seen as a great step in the right direction. Let's say the movie makes less than $300 million. I really don't think that is even possible for a Superman film in the modern day, but let's say it does. I think in that scenario, Zaslav will be having words with Gunn. If the reviews are poor, then Gunn's job is in jeopardy. If the reviews are good or great, then I think they would simply have to revise their plan slightly, because they need to work out how to draw in more people. They need to work out why the film isn't attractive to general audiences. But with the announcement that DC Studios is going to make the UK its home in 2027, I think that shows that Zaslav sees a long-term future with the DCU. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I've made a whole video breaking down that news, and I will leave a link in the description below to it. But Zaslav wouldn't invest money into expanding the Leavesden studios and moving DC Studios there if he wasn't investing in the DCU in the long term. So I think he recognizes that the franchise may have a slow start, but he is committed to sticking with Gunn for the long haul. Unless he really believes Superman Legacy is going to be a hit, and he is throwing all the money at Gunn because he is convinced Legacy will be a success. That could be a huge mistake, and his judgment could be way off, or it could be a fantastic decision that pays off. Time will tell. But I am optimistic for Superman Legacy. I think it will be a fresh take and one that I hope audiences will connect to. And I absolutely do believe this movie has a lot of pressure on it, and it could be the make or break for the DCU. I just really hope it succeeds and it draws in audiences and we are no longer having to talk about why a DC movie has flopped. I want to be able to talk about these movies for the stories they tell, rewatch them because they were great, and be excited for the future. I want to be able to theorize about what's going to happen next, or who may turn up in the next movie, or what this film means for the future of the DCU. Not trying to work out if we are ever going to see this character again after their movie flopped. I think you know there is a real problem with the franchise when fans discuss more about the box office of the film than the actual story the film tells. And unfortunately, DC has been wrapped up so much in the box office whilst making mediocre movies that us fans have had to suffer, not knowing if the next movie is going to be made or if we are going to ever see that character again. I'm just hoping the DCU is incredible, just giving us incredible stories with great characters. I want to see this universe thrive, and hopefully it does. And it all depends on whether or not Superman Legacy is a hit with audiences and at the box office. Without that, the DCU won't get off the ground in my opinion. But like I said, this is just my opinion, and now it is time for me to hear yours. Make sure to get into the comments section and let me know what your expectations are for Superman Legacy, and if you think that DCU's future completely relies on Legacy being a hit. I love to know your opinions on every topic I talk about, so make sure to let me know in the comments below. But that is all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe and turn on post notifications so you never miss a video. I hope to see you here again soon, so until then, have a great day. Bye!